Hey guys, okay, well, first of all, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope the new year is a prosperous and good one for you. Now, I just wanted to give you a bit of an update on my GPS build. It's been raining, we've had snow, we've had ice, sleet, everything, and we've got rain now. So to be able to get out and get a flight in with absolutely anything, it's just been a no-go really, so I've taken the spare time I've had and decided to get this thing going. Now, I was going to wait until I could afford another board, just for one reason particularly, and that was to be able to make a connection area for this module, which is a Bluetooth module, which would enable me to plug this in and out of the quad in order to use my phone for things like waypoints and bits and pieces. But as there's so much testing to do with this craft before that, I just thought let's just get stuck into it. I'd got the time, got the weather against me, and I decided I just wanted to get it built. So here it is, all built up. Now, the cabling may not look or be as neat as what some would desire. If you imagine that there were sides on this, you wouldn't be able to see it anyway, but that's not the point. The reason why the GPS cable is a little bit longer going in here is because I can actually disconnect this and take it off and put it on what would be the Owl, ZMR250 Owl craft that I've built, because I've also set that up to be GPS. But it doesn't have a module. I don't have two modules, so I've just got the one module, and this one's on here for the Night Eagle, the night flight camera, which I was hoping that being the second, that tonight would be the day I actually get out for that flight, but I won't be able to because it's absolutely hooning it down and I can't see it stopping, and it'll be too soggy to get up the hill tonight anyway. And being out there, and if I do crash in the wet, that's not very good for electronics, as you all know. So, I've put LEDs on for navigation purposes, so if I'm flying in the dark and as I bring it in closer to me, I can turn the lights on so I can switch from the screen to a line of sight. I have put a buzzer on. I've taken the buzzer on that was on here because it was quite loud, and I've put a quieter one on because if it's going to be out at night times, I don't need it beeping away with the loudness that the other buzzer has. I've got my smart audio, which is good, so I've got, I am going to say it, literally hundreds of different settings I can now change and play around with from the controller, going through the on-screen display. If I do a right yaw, push the pitch stick forward all the way, I get the on-screen display settings, and there's absolute loads in there from my rates, so I can turn up the sensitivity of yaw, pitch, roll, etc. to just turning things on and off on the screen. And then of course if I do the left one, I can left yaw, full pitch forward. I can then adjust things like return to home speeds, lots of GPS side of things, the video transmitter, band, channel, output, powers. There are just loads and loads and loads of things I can do from within the controller to there. So just give me a tick and I will connect this up to the computer and have it displayed up there so you can see basically what I get to see. Okay, so I've connected up the battery power, otherwise we'll have an alarm going off saying that the battery's too low. I'm just going to flip the switch on the transmitter.
Welcome to OpenTX. Engine disabled. If you flick that switch one more time, brick mode off. Engine on. Return to home. Off.
Okay, so what we get to see up there, and I hope this thing focuses in good enough for you to see. top left, you've got the satellites connected at this minute in time, 14. You've got to remember I'm inside. Just to the right of that, up slightly, is sensors. And of course you can see the compass there. The arrow there is return to home points, direction indicator. And then you've got distance in meters, you've got altitude in meters just to the right there, both on the zeros. Down in the middle to the left, you've got the speed, kilometers there. Trying to get the sort of focus in. And then all the general stuff, pitch roll, which mode I'm in, which is a horizon. So this sits, I've got my RSSI for my transmitter signal. Even though that seems low, if I move it away it'll go up into the 90s. It's because it's too close, but just for this. Yeah, so if I do now, one of the things I've learnt about all this is maybe put my hand across the top of there. That's with my hand across the top of the GPS module. Now, if you remember on the Hobson, when you do that sort of thing, it just loses it altogether. That's mine drops down. You remember I'm indoors as well, so anyway. So I've set up my switches. Because that's one of the things you're doing here, set up your modes. So we've got the arm, disarm switch, and we've got angle, horizon, and if it's in neither of those two, then it's automatically in acro mode. I've got air mode on a switch, so we can use that or not use it. Good one for bringing it for landing, so it doesn't just, because you won't be able to actually bring the throttle all the way down, you can have a digital throttle value. So it's good if you bring it to landing, just switch off the air mode on the way in, and then you can just land it as normal. Navigation, altitude hold. We got navigation position hold. We got navigation return to home. Of course the beeper, we need that in case we lose it, and it's just like stuck somewhere but I can't see it, so I can just flick on that switch for a beeper. LEDs, so we can switch them on, because this is LED low position, so the LEDs are off at the moment. A failsafe, of course. My failsafe is actually set up. Now I can do this in various different ways. Even though it sort of indicates it's not on there, it is on, and I'll show you when I go into the actual command line interface, and I'll show you in there that it's actually set. And it's set to land. Midpoint on the throttle is 1500. I'm probably going to need to turn that up a bit. This is going to be experimentation to get this about right. But just at this minute in time, it'll be midpoint, and it will actually have 10 seconds to do its landing. I could just drop it out the sky, but I've got a kill switch to do that, which is basically disarm or arm the motors. There is a kill switch option, but as I disarm and arm the motors with a switch, that is a kill switch also. So I've not actually, I've set it up. I've set it up within the controller. Sorry, I've set it up within the controller because I've made a little map of my functions here, my modes, and I've also mapped them to the switches here, so I know which switches are doing what in what position. Even though, to be honest with you, it's because I've learnt half of them already. It's not that difficult just to add on the extra ones. But I can do a return to home on this as well. I can set it to be return to home, but until I've tested position hold, until I've tested altitude hold, until I've tested low level return to homes, I'm not actually going to set up my failsafe to be return to home until I've done that, because if I go to advanced tuning, I've got lots of options here for the navigation settings, speeds, heights, all sorts, and of course the return to home and landing settings is quite important, because like here that says 1000 return to home centimeters, that's 10 meters. I can set that to whatever heights I like, but I will do it, I'm actually going to set that so it's more like 2 meters, because when I test all these I'll be out in the field and it'll be low, and I'll test it then to see what it does. And of course then I don't have to have it climb before return to home. I can have it at the same height that it's at, All these things I can pre-configure. I can pre-configure it so it comes in tail first, or whether it comes in nose first, whether it lands after return to home or whether it doesn't. I think there's a few options there actually, only on failsafe, always or never. So there's lots of things to the fixed wing. There's not going to be any options there for me because of course it's a quad that I'm using. So yeah, it's done, it's built. All I need now is a day where I can actually get into the field and test it. I have used all my ports, which is inevitable. I would like to have had an extra port here to have connected up the Bluetooth, but everything's used. I've got my smart audios working. Everything is working the way I wanted it to, so I'm really chuffed about that. Ironically, when I plug this board in, it's a clone of the F4 Evo. It doesn't throw an error, and still when I plug in the original one, it throws the error. But never mind, I still managed to get it configured. I still managed to get it all GPS held up and sorted out, and I still managed to have a test hover inside this room to ensure that I wasn't got any crazy vibrations or anything like that going on. Now I will say that one of the most difficult things for setting this up is the board and sensor alignment. The board not so much. It's simple enough. It's one of those, if you tilt the board forwards, you want to see the craft go forward on there, yeah, and as you tilt forward, you don't want to see the craft going left or right or doing anything like that. Maybe by a degree or possibly two, but not that's me just twitching my hands because I've got a little bit of wobbly on the wires down here, but not too much, which tells me that my my board is nicely aligned. And if I point it north, there we go, so you can see the heading there, 0, which is north. It's set on the battery, and that's not quite level underneath there because of the straps, that's why pitch and roll is slightly off, but everything is calibrated on it. Yeah, so that's one of the things you need to get done, and it can be a bit of a trial and error, bit of playing around with that, and I spent absolutely ages playing around with this, and it turned out it was CW0 flip. And I didn't know that's because, well, the declination, I've left it on 0 because it's an F4 board, so we can sort that out for itself. Because it's all in the destructions, So just yeah, one of the important things is
Lights on.
LEDs, nicely on the front, nice and bright. The two on the outers are yellow actually, and the two middle ones are white. And then on the back there, out of the 8, I've just put 4 on. I could set up the other ones so they do different things. They could be flashing. I could get them flashing blue and red, so it looks a bit police car-ish. Or I could have them doing the Night Rider thing. I could do that on the front. But really, I don't have any real interest for that. Everything's on a switch.
Lights off.
We got our position holds.
Position hold.
On a switch, back to 0.
Altitude hold.
On the altitude hold, we've got the engines aren't armed, so this won't actually do anything, because as you can see up there, look, it says disarmed. Maybe you can see, what's it say there, low sats. That's because it's dropping out a little bit, very overcast, and I'm indoors, and I've got a switch mode power supply light above me, so
Return to home.
well, I'm going to switch that off.
Return to home. Off.
Always good to know where that is, and it's off, because we got our different modes. So this one, the first one would be angle.
Cheat mode active.
Cheat mode.
If you flick that switch one more time.
That's horizon, and then the next one's acro.
Things are about to get real.
That's acro mode. What we got on here, this is the failsafe,
Brick mode on.
which is brick mode.
Brick mode off. Engine on.
Now I couldn't find a sound for air mode, so all I've got for air mode is
Airspeed.
airspeed. It says air, and I can turn that off. I probably want to put off on that, so when I switch back it says airspeed off, just so I know that I'm off. But most of my sensors will come on to me knowing where the switches are in the first place, not relying on it to tell me what's going on. Return to home, things like that might be good. There we go. That's it. It's done. It's. I'm not. This is because it needs the.
Engines armed. Engine disabled.
I don't know if you can. That looks any better. That's because it's a black and white camera, because it's the night camera, so you don't really get to see on the screen so well, but it is quite well contrasted once you've actually got something up there and you get used to it. There is a bit of getting used to with this night vision stuff. It is completely different to the daytime stuff, but it's still good. It's still all good. So yeah, there we go. That's the GPS one. On the go. It would be nice to have the long distance. I mean, this is what they call full range, this antenna. The receiver, it's the XR4SB, which is like 1.5 kilometers plus, but not so much. I mean, it'll do, you know, it'll be okay. It'll be like a Hubsan range type thing, but it's not like the other one that I've got in the Owl, which, you know, you get out to 1 kilometer with that one, it still tells you at 99% of your range, signal strength. But I've only got 4 channels on that, which means I can't have all of the extras. I mean, your 4 channels, you want 2 of those will be for the transmit receive, for your telemetry and, you know, the actual control of the bird. And then you're going to have 2 other channels. One of them you're definitely going to want a failsafe. You get failsafes built into your receivers, but you really do want a secondary protocol on this failsafe as well, so it doesn't just cut the engines and drop out of the sky. No matter what height you are, you may want it so it comes down at a decent speed on the engine, so it just hovers down to the ground, rather than just drop your bird down like a brick. That's why mine's called brick mode. Not because it will drop out of the sky like a brick, but it's just I think it's just a cool thing to call it, brick mode. It's coming down. But I've also got a kill switch and my arm switch.
Engines armed.
Or
engine disabled.
Engine's disabled. You do that and it's going to come down like a brick anyway. So I can set up my my failsafe to be something a bit more structured. And when I've tested all the other modes on this and the return to home's working properly and how I want it, then I will flick the failsafe onto return to home. So when it does go into failsafe, when I do run out of signal, after a few seconds of being out of signal, let's say 6, 7, 8, 9, or whatever I decide to set it at, signals being out of signal, out of control range, then it'll just turn around and do a return to home. Yeah, but so like I said, with the other one, I've only got 4 channels, and of course the other one will be an arm switch it on and off, which is great. So if you're low level, something's going wrong, you can just flick, you know, if you hit the deck, you can just turn off the motors, bang, straight away, engine's off. So, but with this one, I've got 16 channels, and I've used near enough all of them, but I think I've got like three left, and they will be for like gimbal and bits and pieces if I had it for a camera, but I don't have that. That's it, yeah. But it's there, it's working, it's flashing between 9 and 10, 8, 9 and 10 satellites indoors. Very overcast, rain all day, thick clouds, no good to be out there at all. Surprised I haven't got any satellites being indoors, to be honest with you. But then again, when it's clear outside, I can get 19 satellites in here. I've had 19 before. So I can imagine on a decent day outside, we're going to be pretty good for the old satellite holds and doing bits and pieces. So I just thought I'd share that with you, and I can't wait to be able to get out with it. I know it's not a Hubsan video like I said I was going to do, but like I said, the weather's been too crappy. I could just, well, let me just set it up a second. I'm going to show you just quickly, very quickly, some of the options you've got within the on-screen display. Okay, quick run through on this.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Just let it get this bit out of the way.
Engine disabled. Things are about to get real. Lights off. Brick mode off. Engine on. Return to home off.
Okay, don't know why it says low stats. I suppose it's because it's just dropping out on me. Alright, so if we do a left yaw and a pitch full forward, we've got the PID tuning area. And in there, I'm not actually sure how you do all this stuff. I've not really looked at it too much, and I'm not going to change anything around until I've read up about it and what I'm to do. Yeah, don't really know a great deal about this, so all the defaults though should be enough, because I've watched enough of these now being flown with defaults and everything's been okay. The only ones I would want to change really would be the defaults I'll show in a minute, and that'll be not navigation so much, because here you got control mode, altitude, and if I switch that, look, you've got cruise, so you can change your navigation speed, your cruise speed, your climb rates and such. Same for the altitude hold. Again, not really done anything here. Mid throttle for altitude hold, so you can actually set it to on, so you just put the throttle mid. I think it's going to be a little bit like on the hub somewhere. It's at mid throttle, you know, center sprung stick, and you got your altitude hold there. But then you can set it to 1500 anyway, and as long as you've set up your sticks, as long as you've set up that OK, which mine is, it's 1000 for 0, 2000 for full, and 1500 for mid. As long as you've got all that set up correctly, you know, you're fine anyway. So the return to home, so you've got a whole bunch of stuff there for return to home. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, this is why I don't have the GPS coordinates at the top on this, because I've got the on-screen display on here and you can't actually see them as well as they might like, but I can turn that off. Yeah, so yeah, you can adjust all things here. So return to home, altitude, that's 10 meters, 1000 centimeters. Climb before return to home on, so you don't have to have it. So if you're flying around at, let's say, 2 meters, and then you want it to do return to home, it can return to home at 2 meters. You don't have to get it to climb to whatever you've pre-configured that height to be. Tail first, you know, again, we looked at that actually in the software, didn't we? So land after return time, you don't have to land, you can have it just hover around. So yeah, but you've got all sorts of things going on there. Return to home abort threshold, now that's for 500 meters, looking at that 50,000 centimeters. Be interesting to see what that actually means actually. I'm not quite sure. Fixed wing, don't have fixed wings, not interested in that. So here we go. This is the general thing that I had with smart audio before anyway, which is the band selection, so I can swap my bands, race band, fat sharp, boss cam. I'm going to leave it the way it is, obviously, otherwise we'll have to retune this. Channel 3, frequency 5780, and the power is 25 milliwatts, because I've just got it sat here and I don't really want it any higher than that. Don't want it to overheat or do anything. The VTXA is for the tramp video transmitters. The LED strip, just to confirm that yes, the LED is enabled, the strips are enabled. I've got it on a switch, so I can actually turn them on and off from the switch. The information about the flight controller and the firmware that's on there, so you can see there, look, you got iNAV 1.8.0. Git revision, not quite sure what that's all about, and the target is the SP Racing F4 Evo. We can get back out of that. And I'm just going to do an exit. I don't know actually what's in MISC. What's in MISC here? So we got all VBAC scale, VBAC CL max. I'm not quite sure what CL max is. I have to look it up. And my min throttle, because I don't throttle all the way down to 0. My min throttle, it starts. That's just so I got a little tiny bit of leeway space on the throttle stick, so it's not just as soon as I touch that throttle, we got propellers. I've got to actually move it up a bit before it starts doing anything. Only a little tiny bit low. I think it's just a 70. Let's exit out of that. So now if I do a yaw fully to the right and pitch full forward, I've now got a whole different menu system come up. This is PID configuration. Well, I don't want to change any of this yet. I'm just starting to learn how to do things with PIDs by watching various videos on YouTube, and I'm not really at a place for playing around with that sort of thing yet. So RC rates. So at the minute, even though it says RC rate 100, I probably should check and see. In actual fact, I'm going to see what that actually adjusts. I don't think I can change. Yes, I can. I'm going to move this up here to change this. So I'm just going to go up to the top and just see what happens when I try adjusting that. Okay, so it does go up, and I wonder if this is set for like the 180. So you go all the way from like a lower number up to 180. I don't know. I need to check on that. I know that these other numbers, these 20s, go up to 180, and at the minute they're set. And it's very, you got to put quite a lot of stick movement in to get it to do anything. So I need to tweak those up, and I will get around to tweaking those up. But of course, the great thing about it is you can adjust all these things, which is great. Throttle mid is on 50 at the minute. Need to check before I change any of that, and I think that's the RC rate 100 full stick, and then the mid will be on 50. So those would all have to be adjusted as well. But I'm not too sure. TPA breakpoint, I don't know what that is. Your RC Expo, not sure what that is. I've been doing some things with Expo. I think that sort of like slows it down a bit, because I have mine when I do the simulators on like 30, 35. I should play around with it really to see, because I've just copied what somebody else said about setting it up. Like that just tells me how to access the flight controller settings by doing the throttle middle, yaw left, and pitch full, and that gives me this menu. But we know that anyway. Surprising to tell you once you're in the menu how to do it, because you know how to do it to get into it. But never mind. Display main voltage on, adjust the voltages so I can calibrate the voltage, but it's not, it's bang on to what it is. Main voltage alarm, so that's set at 105, which means 10.5 volts, because I'm using a 3-cell battery, and I just want it to continuously flash at me, and I use it directly from the flight controller as well, but the flight controller gets from the VBAC input on there. Display RSSI, of course, for the signal strength for the receiver, and it says there 92. That's because I've moved the quad away a little bit from the receiver now. Before it was a bit closer, and it actually drops it down on the signal strength. Plays against itself type thing, reflections I suppose. Set the RSSI, I use it direct from the FC, because I've actually calibrated, I've actually set it up to be a channel on my receiver to send the RSSI from the receiver directly to the flight controller, and I can pick it up from there, so I don't need to adjust anything. These sort of things. Amps, I don't use any amps because I don't have that sort of sensor on my controller. But so as you can see, if I just go up, I can turn on now the GPS coordinates. I had them switched off. I can turn things off like sensors. I don't really need the sensor on. I don't need the gimbal indicator on. I can turn off the horizon, the sidebars, the scrolling bars, the throttle if I want to. I can adjust map modes, but it's just best off leaving that on where it actually is. Units, so we're in oh dear, I can't think what kilometers is what it's classed as, but you can have imperial or that one. It's net. Why can't I think of that? My brain's going to be blank. Now the magnetometer calibration, I don't know whether that's so you can actually do in the field calibrations. It'd be interesting to see. I've calibrated mine up nicely. I don't really want to change it from the way it is. It's all set up, so. And I'm not really sure what some of these other bits and pieces are. The on-screen display text channel is because you can set up multiple screens, so you can flick from one channel to the other and have different layouts on your on-screen display. I've not done that on mine, I've just done the one just for now. Then you got alarms for distance, height and speed and etc. if you want to have those types of things on. Profiles, you can set up different profiles. They're set up in different ways and switch between profiles to how you want it set up, which is pretty cool. Not quite sure about the controller part or the loop time part. It says anal top right, so I'm not quite sure what that's all about, but it's interesting. There's all sorts of things going on there, and there is actually movements. There are numbers changing, and I really don't know what all that is about. Fly time for the statistics, voltage minimums and RSSI minimums, and that's it. So that is just a quick look at the way it's set up, and now you can see the coordinates at the top and the GPS coordinates. So that's the full flavour of the screen there, and I hope you can see that okay. Right, there we go. Hopefully the next time will be a Hubsan, or it'll be get a nice day, get this to get out and have a little bit of fly around with this and see what it's like, and yeah, so if you got this far, guys, cheers for watching, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Take care.